there are, I think, two parts to the question. One is if the Iran-US kind of results in war, which at the moment it's building up to. It's a collision course from which I'm not seeing any exit ramp at the moment. And if that happens, then roughly 40% of the world's tradable oil comes from the Straits of Hormuz and Bab el-Mandeb, the Suez-Bab el-Mandeb route. All that oil infrastructure and transit is in danger. If that happens, the big losers, doesn't matter whether Iran is substituted by Saudi Arabia or not, you still don't get oil. You will see that oil will not be available for countries like India, Korea, Japan and China. China has land routes which we don't. Yes, we can compensate for it in the long run, but the short run, 40% of the world's oil infrastructure getting destroyed, which is likely to happen if there's a war in the region, doesn't augur well for India. It is going to hit us very hard. It's a consequence to the world which is really disastrous. For India is even more so, because that's where, as I said, 70% of India's oil comes from West Asia. So let's keep that in mind. The second part is the question that you raised. What about India's strategic relationship with Iran? And it is true that, in fact, India always regarded Iran as a larger friend in the region. And for two reasons. One is against Pakistan. Iran had played in the Organization of Islamic Countries, it had played a positive role. And they have generally not taken any anti-India positions in any of this kind of fora. Secondly, if we are looking at Central Asia, then including Afghanistan, which is the gateway to Central Asia from South Asia, then also Iran is the only country with which we could have an access to Afghanistan and Central Asia. That's really geostrategically, again, that's the only route we have. Yeah. So once we said we are not going to do with the Brick Road, the Belt Road Initiative, we are not going to be a part of that. Our only alternative in coming to Central Asia and the larger Eurasian landmass is then the closest point was Iran, and the Chabahar port was really as a part of that. It was our gateway to Afghanistan as well as to Central Asia. Now, as we know, in the recent budget, the budgetary allocation has come down drastically, and though we have partial acceptance at the Chabahar port, we can make some payments and so on. The way things are, it's almost become impossible to actuate those payments and buy and sell to Iran with any degree of ease. And if we can't buy Iran oil, then they of course can't take goods from us either. So that is going to affect our exports, and the Chabahar port is essentially a project as far as India and Iran is concerned can be dead, which means Iran will have to look for alternatives. And interestingly enough, Pakistan and China are better alternatives. And they will say, yeah, it's very easy. We get from China, it comes into Pakistan, and from Pakistan to Iran, it can go anywhere. So, you have this brick, the Belt Road Initiative then becomes also the Chabahar port, which we have built at our cost. So our investments in Afghanistan had no meaning if Iran becomes a country we can't touch. So strategically, it is really the other side of the Afghan peace process, which is now on, in which Pakistan has clearly emerged as a player, in which Taliban, of course, is the major player. They control about 70% of Afghan territory as of now, and which Moscow and China are playing a much bigger role. And US is somehow wanting to cut its losses and run. They can't do it without Pakistan support. That's the reality of it. So, as we said earlier, United States has a very transactional belief in international terms. So Pakistan, they put pressure at certain points of time. Now they're saying Mr. Imran Khan will help us get out of Afghanistan. And everybody is willing then to ask their price for that. And Pakistan price is very simple. Keep India out of Afghanistan, and that's the price the United States is quite happy to pay. So losing Iran in this particular context under US pressure means the only other card we have in the region we also give up. And I'm not saying whether it's a long-term alliance or not, but our autonomy to be a player in the region, particularly Central Asia, Afghanistan, West Asia, depends on a certain relation we have with Iran. And you know, I really don't understand what this government is doing. That having claimed all this nationalism, that we are one of the world's biggest economies now, from 6th, 5th, 4th, all this talk is going on, 5 trillion. But when it comes to our national interest, both economic and strategic, we don't seem to be willing to stand up for what we think is right and what is in our larger interest.
I mean, I'm reminded of India's fluctuating stand on Tibet. In the same manner, we are seeing India's withdrawal from Shabbat, and we are losing a high moral ground, and we are just yielding to the demands of the major powers.
You know, I don't mind if you lose the high moral ground from some strategic benefit.
Unless it
is both. You are losing the high moral ground, you're not willing to take position of what is under international law right, that US sanctions on Iran are illegal, that they are not United Nations sanctions, they are not international sanctions, they're illegal. So that's where the high moral ground should come. Other is it's in your strategic interest, in self-interest, not to lose Iran as a possible ally. And you know, in international terms, as well as in personal terms, you're a friend. You're a friend when I have a need for you. If in times of need, you're not a friend, then you're really not a friend. Good weather friends are not the friends. Storm weather friends are really the friends. And I think therefore on 2 occasions, we seem to be willing to sacrifice Iran, shall we say. One was when the international IAEA sanctions were being proposed. We became a party under Manmohan Singh to those sanctions, which actually cost us an enormous amount of goodwill in Iran. Now again, when Iran is facing an existential crisis, we seem to be willing to basically hide our head under the wall, under the parapet, and not show it, because we don't want to take any risks whatsoever. But we are forgetting that we have deep economic, strategic interest in our relations with Iran. And it's not a question of alliance, it's a question of geostrategic interest and energy interest. So apart from the threat of war, which I think India should play a much bigger role to avert, because that's also the economic interest. We have 8 million expatriates who work in the Gulf region. So if that region is destroyed, it's a huge income loss to us, remittances, it's a huge market loss to us, and we have 8 million people who will come back here. I think these are all things we have to consider.
Virtually, China has almost entered in this issue of, if Iran gets isolated, and I think then Iran will definitely go to China for help.
You see, China has been a long-time friend for Iran under sanctions. China has not accepted US sanctions and has always bought and sold Iranian oil, bought Iranian oil and sold goods to it. I remember last time when the sanctions were on, and that was the earlier regime of sanctions at the time, then China was buying oil from Iran. They had a problem. The insurance companies would not actually give insurance for the oil tankers, so tankers would not agree to it. So at that time, they jointly with Iran, they worked out that they will actually have tankers which will be owned by Iran or China who transport the oil. And those insurance companies then were set up by China to provide the marine insurance. So all this China has already prepared. Don't forget that the world today, the major part of international trade carries maritime trade, and US and